Just put record on my share, and then let's just put gallery view for a moment. Good morning, both.
Good morning, Michelle.
Morning, I'm Michelle.
You both well?
Very well, thank you.
Fantastic. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here, and thank you for taking the time. I know you're very busy and very in demand, as everyone has kind of awoke through COVID, particularly, haven't they, to the importance of wellness anyway, but never more so into the sort of built environment and what we can and should be doing to sort of make these spaces sort of work harder for us. And I know you've got some great insights to sort of share with that. So once again, for the recording, introducing Asif, Iqbal and Jean-Paul Blissett from Well Architecture Design, who are going to lead us through this session on creating well spaces. So I'll hand over to both of you. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.
Asif, are you going to load? Can you load that up and share the screen?
Yeah, sure. I think just before we sort of break into it, JP, I thought it's a very powerful insight from Glenda there in terms of the story and the way that she so eloquently shared her view on how the pampering spa and wellness environment supported her so well through the cancer experience. And I think that sort of ties quite well into what we're talking about, how we think that spaces designed in the right way can really provide refuge to people who are going through the cancer experience. I just want to sort of introduce that before we break into the slides. Okay. Michelle, could you please enable screen share?
That should now be done.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so here we go. JP, do you want to break us into it?
Yes, firstly, a warm welcome to everybody on this day 3. Hope you very much enjoyed all the sessions before this. Very, very interesting. Today, I think, as Michelle said, Asif and I are going to be looking at wellness design and how it's applied generally, but more specifically, our thoughts on how it could be applied to cancer. The perspective we have is very much from architects and designers, having worked in this sphere for over 30 years. And whilst many of you might know now that there's more research and standards being set and accreditation, I think this is a kind of personal perspective that's born out of our own innovation through actually observation and working, rather than actually looking at a whole mass of metrics. But we will come on to those standards later. I think the other thing is that as architects and designers, we have a great understanding of wellness and space, but we're not cancer experts. We're putting our personal thoughts out there. And what we're hoping from this, that this will stimulate a debate and encourage others to perhaps engage with us, because actually we would like to learn more as to how we could actually bring wellness into the cancer space.
Thank you, JP. So this is an interesting slide to really kick us off. Is where are we now? I think more so than ever before, certainly post-pandemic, what a lot of people are realizing is that being well is really crucial to our long-term physical and psychological well-being. We really do firmly believe that wellness is no longer optional.
Just a quick little bit about us. This is not a promo, but to perhaps just set a perspective to where we come from. We both work in the sphere of architecture, interior, and master planning. That's very important to us because we see this as a totality. We don't actually distinguish between interior and exterior. And we see how the exterior part, well, landscape, comes into a building. This is really important to us. We've been making wellness part of our lives for over 30 years now. And we've been looking at how to transform spaces. We first started that way back with Chivason, where we transformed the whole concept of what a destination spa could be. And now looking at how wellness can come into other areas, such as retail, where we work, family and later living. As I've said, this is very much about sharing our own views, where we see the market going, and what innovations that there are. And the other thing, of course, is that I sort of mentioned that we love to collaborate with people in this sphere, and we do have quite an established network at the moment. So we go to the next one. Just a quickie, Asif's being very kind to me. He's put 30 years there of wellness, but I think some of you could do the maths and see that I worked on Champneys in 1985, so a little longer than that. I think what this does demonstrate is that we have a heritage and have been doing this for a very long time. We're not simply arriving and applying standards, and it comes through a very, very long period of thinking about wellness. The QE2, interesting enough, was the first ever spa on a cruise ship. We went on to do 35 spas thereafter. Chivasom, which I think some of you may know, in Thailand, was the first ever destination spa in Asia, which then went on to really set the benchmark. And then just going through, I think more interestingly, people know one day spa, but I think then Cloud 12 was the first multi-generational family wellness facility, which is in London. And now we're working on Well Village in London, which is going to be the first integrated wellness within a retail environment. So I think this just gives you a little bit of background as to who we are. The future of wellness, yes, actually, well, we're kind of working on it now. From this long experience and always having challenged the accepted norms and looking for new ideas, we've developed family wellness, which I said we did at Cloud 12, wellness living, which we are doing with our extra care and care homes, optimized wellness, working with body code and on retail environments, and now integrated wellness, as I mentioned, in terms of retail miles, bringing affordable care within a destination that is much more convenient for people. So a lot of what we've been doing in the past has allowed us now to translate a lot of this experience into bringing wellness into a lot of other different environments.
And just on that, JP, if you look at some of the sectors that we've talked through there,
yeah,
that also reflects on the growing interest in wellness that's moving away from the traditional core areas, such as the traditional beauty, spa, and pampering world. Wellness now is permeating every aspect of our lives. So you do have the entire wellness for the family. You have wellness in extra care and later living. You have wellness in the retail environment, and certainly have wellness more than ever embedded in the workplace. So really, the projects we're working on now, to some extent, just match the trajectory of the interest in wellness as it's increasing throughout people's mindsets. I mean, really, for us as designers, this presentation is a bit of a journey. So there's lots of things here that I'm sure that people taking part in this conference are well aware of. But what we're setting out here, as JP alluded to at the start of this, is our understanding of the wellness narrative and what we take from it. So as we always start with every project, what is wellness? In my mind, it's a balanced, optimum state of physical, mental, and social well-being. It's as simple as that. Of course, you have the Global Wellness Institute, who are custodians of everything wellness, and they set out six key criteria: physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, social, and importantly, occupational as well, because obviously we spend an awful lot of time undertaking our occupations, and therefore wellness in terms of what we do as jobs day to day is also crucial. But also what's interesting is that this nebulous thing that is wellness also is dynamic and changing constantly. So we have to create environments around us that can flex and change to meet different demands of those different aspects. So there's another challenge there. Okay, so wellness now, as far as we're concerned, is everywhere. It really has become a household term. That was increasing pre-pandemic, and I think certainly out of pandemic now, post-pandemic, it's increased hugely. It very much is on everyone's mind at the moment. We're so much more aware now than ever before that the lifestyle choices we make affect us psychologically and physically. I mean, JP and I talk about this, and we really do think, and I'm sure lots of people on this conference would agree, that we are in the middle of an upheaval around wellness. There's a huge shift culturally. But why does any of this matter in terms of design and the design of environments and spaces? Some of you may have seen this statistic. It really is very powerful. We spend 93% of our time indoors. I'll just let that sit there just for a moment. I mean, if you think about that, that's just so huge as a number. And in fact, this was from almost 30 years ago, a survey that was carried out in the States. So arguably with the advent of the internet and people being able to work remotely and people being able to shop from home much more, we think that number's actually probably gone up, in fact. So if you can make a link between your environment and your wellness, and you're spending more than 90% of your time indoors, that's an important statistic to be aware of and to understand the implications of that as well. So what do we know? We've known for 30, 40, 50 years that buildings have a huge impact on the environment in terms of carbon dioxide, in terms of emissions, in terms of the waste that comes out of buildings and the energy that they consume. But what there hasn't been, but that's changing now, is a growing interest in understanding what impact does that environment have on the people using the building. And I think that's the big shift that's going on that's happened in the last 5 to 10 years, is we're starting to realize actually that the buildings that we occupy have a huge impact on us physically and also mentally. Again, back to the Global Wellness Institute, this is a quote from Catherine Johnston. It's proven that the physical characteristics of the built environment can contribute directly to people's health and well-being. What do we know? And I think, again, out of people's personal experience during the pandemic, being locked down, working from home for long periods of time, we do know that poorly designed environments can have a significant impact on our well-being in a detrimental way. We know also that the environment can affect our stress level. If you're in a space that has poor natural light, that is cramped, is cluttered, that maybe is not designed in an optimum way, that it can have an impact on you in terms of your stress levels, in terms of your productivity. Also, it can have an impact on your relationships and even your mood. So I think there is an opportunity here, and this is something that JP and I are going to talk more about, and we're actually focusing on much more as a building, is that the buildings that we design, the environments we design, can have a big impact on your psychological well-being. But it's not just the designers, and I think that's an important point, is that we are merely part of a much bigger machine. Yeah, we are the designers, but ahead of us, there's stakeholders, there's funders, there's our clients, there's authorities that we work with, the operators that input the design of our buildings. All of us have to work together to deliver wellness. It's not one thing that one of us can push on our own. All of us can participate in this wellness revolution. So the evidence, JP, can you?
Yeah, leaving me with all the evidence. I think what's interesting here is that, as it says, what we do know is, and there's been research and empirical evidence that the spaces we inhabit can have a major impact on our mental and physical well-being. Up till now, and it's fairly obvious that a lot of the research has been conducted in the workplace, in particular in offices, because obviously that's where people historically have spent a lot of their time. And I think post-pandemic, this is going to have more importance. And I think employers are starting to see that people are going to want to work in better and healthier environments. And this will play into how they recruit the best talent, and more importantly, how they retain people. So, as I said, within the workplace, there's a lot of research that has gone on that demonstrates quite clearly that the benefit an environment can have on you. Consultants like Kundal have done research over many, many years where they have tweaked the lighting, the air quality, etc., And they've been able to demonstrate the impact it has had on people's productivity, their mood, and how they feel about themselves. So we know that happens. In more transient environments, we don't have that evidence, but nevertheless, I think it's quite logical to be able to extrapolate that if we can demonstrate what the benefit has come about from people who are actually working in office spaces, that this should be applied to all other spaces. And I think that just these statistics here that 65% of employees are more concerned about a healthy environment. And we know that because we're talking to people at the moment in workplaces as to how we can better design them. And I think that these statistics will play more and more of a part, I think, in hospitality and leisure and wellness.
Just another quote here that we think is very interesting is that in essence, the design of wellness environments is in fact very simply reintroducing a connection with nature. If you look at the absolute fundamentals of wellness space, if you take away the technical requirements, it's about great light, it's about good fresh air, it's about fresh water, that's good fresh water, spring water, and it's about planting. So in a strange sort of way, it's about reconnecting us to nature. And oddly, although there's science around this designing the wellness spaces, it's actually really obvious. It's only in the last 100 years since the Industrial Revolution that we've created this artifice that's disconnected us from our natural environment. For 1,000 years before that, we were much more connected to air around us, having good light, being aware of planting and woodland and forest, and having springs of water around us. So this is about wellness design, is about reconnecting us with this sort of lost knowledge that we actually all have intuitively. And again, I'm sure everyone on this conference agrees that wellness should be experienced by more people wherever they are. This is something that isn't just for an elite few, but really needs to be part of something the general public can access on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so just a quick sort of how-to. So these are the absolutes for basics. And again, I'm sure lots of you are aware of this. Planting is crucial in your spaces. These are simple things you can do at home. Having planting at home is really crucial. I've got a plant at the back there. I'm sure Jake has got something somewhere, and most of you have as well. Filters and cleans the air. It's also visually calming and de-stressing. These are the essences really of biophilia. Having good filtered water that you're regularly able to access is crucial as well. Take a break, get up, walk, stretch, look away from what you're looking at most of the time, just to give your eyes a bit of a break. Natural light, if you have good natural light, fabulous. If you don't, maybe you need to introduce some sort of daylight lamping into your space as well. Make sure you can adjust and change the light so it's suitable to your work. Try not to have direct sources of light onto your workstations. And good clean air. If you have a window, open it. Let some fresh air in. Let your room breathe. And if it's mechanical air, then do try, if you can, to make sure your filters are clean and your air system is as clean as possible. That's really the basics. How does it come to then designing a wellness environment? So what we've been working on for the last sort of almost 2 years now is almost a system approach to designing for wellness. So rather than just picking and choosing, and you can, depending on your project, what you can also do is take a more sort of robust approach where you sort of tackle the three big issues here. One is what we call the well building standards. And effectively, that's a way of building technically wellness into your space. The second is the way that you use the space or operationally occupy that space. There's no benefit to creating a great wellness environment where you have people working 18-hour work sessions without a break. That defeats the whole purpose. But thirdly, the most important thing, and this is something that lots of people don't talk about very much, is interior design principles. All three of these technical wellness and how you control the technical performance of a space, operationally how the space is used, and then the interior design all work together in this kind of tripart relationship to deliver a really synergistic wellness solution. We'll break into those a little bit more now. So starting with operational planning, obviously key is having a healthy work pattern within the space you're in. The time you spend working is controlled and managed. You offer support to the people working in the space, and they have amenity at hand. They have breakout spaces, they have lounges, they have fitness spaces if you can provide that, or even just outdoor spaces with garden. The well building standards, we'll come to that in more detail. That's technically building wellness in. So that's accreditation by a wellness body, set around 7 principles. And then finally, the interior design, which is the one that everyone seems to forget about, but creating harmonious, calming interior design that holds it all together. Flow, finishes, the way the space is organized, how comfortable and happy people feel within the spaces. All three of these can work together to deliver a really great wellness space. Again, this is just before JP breaks in. There's three sort of systems here in terms of measuring and quantifying wellness in spaces. Well, which we're going to talk about, we like well. Fit well, which is a slightly lighter version of well, and then BRIAM, which focuses much more, LEED is the American equivalent, on the building's performance on the environment. So they're much more about the building rather than the users of the building itself. But again, none of these really consider what is good design quality, and that's something that we'll talk about more later. JP?
Yeah. As Ed's been saying, talking about sort of standardization and certification, well building standards is probably one of the best known. And I think it's just taking what Asif said, that these are all based upon measurable criteria and not the actual physical space in terms of how it impacts you psychologically so much and emotionally as a design. But essentially, well-building standards is performance-based. It measures and it certifies the actual built environment. And it goes into quite a detail in terms of how it impacts your well-being. And then it will come on later to show you all the various aspects, which goes through from air, nourishment, light, mind, etc. It's about optimizing the building for people, not as when it is built, but also ongoing how it can prioritize performance and also how it can establish on a longer term to create a better health for the occupants. And this also comes back to the point about people now in workspaces and where they want to work, and building that confidence in that people will want to go to a better place. And obviously accreditation and certification in different ways will give people that confidence that they are working in a better environment.
Okay, thank you, JP.
So yeah, sorry, we're slightly clunky here. That Asif has to drive the screen. He has ultimate control.
I have to read whether your pause means go to the next slide or you're pausing to think.
Right, yes, okay, all right. So a certification is on 3 levels. And obviously, you know, there is cost involved in this, and particularly front end on the CapEx. And it's not going to be possible for everyone to reach, you know, platinum, nor may they want to. I think what's important is that to understand what the standard is and to apply it as best you can. And I think to look into more detail and to see whether you need accreditation or whether you just want to follow these standards. But I think the main thing is to look into this, and you can find all this information online. We don't need to go into detail now. There's consultants can work with you to take you through this like we can. But I think it's just good to kind of understand what forms the basis of this. Historically, as it's just gone, it was just can you go back one? Flick me on too quickly. Yeah, I mean, essentially it's been driven very, very much by large institutions and commercial buildings. Now, again, obviously, that's easier to do. Now it's coming into programs for residential education, etc. So this, I think, as I was talking about, is what are the key components of well design, and particularly what the well building standards. And as I said, regardless of whether you're conforming to the standards, these are all things I think that you should be looking at. In your environment now, you may not be able to achieve all these, but just look at them and say, which ones of these could we change now in an existing environment? And if you're doing a new project, to look at, again, with your designers to see what you can achieve.
Okay, I'm just conscious of time.
Fine.
Okay, so just on principles of well-building standards, just give you run through some examples. So on air, you'll be looking at things such as filtration, the cleaning protocols of the actual air system itself, and then material safety. Water is about testing the quality of the water to ensure there's a minimum number of additives. Nourishment is ensuring people have access to healthy food options within the building they're working in. Light, again, glare-free, trying to avoid direct lighting, also trying to link it to the circadian rhythms of the body as well is crucial. Fitness, ensuring people have access to fitness spaces. Comfort and mind are the two perhaps that sort of overlap a little bit with the interior design. They're about physical and visual comfort, and then the way the space is organized and biophilia. So that's the kind of principles around it. Again, as JP was alluding to, what the World Building Standards do is they set out some principles, and I think it's effectively, you can go for the accreditation, or you can adopt some of the principles that fit for you. It's not necessarily a cast iron requirement, but I think if you pick and choose the ones that you can get to work for your space and your operation, I think you're doing well. What the World Building Standards really do is provide you with a robust tool for world building principles to put them into a building. But also importantly, the stakeholders within the building know that the building environment is optimized for the users within that building itself. Okay, so cancer care, and trying to bring all this back into how does it affect creating spaces for people with cancer. So when Michelle introduced this topic to us, obviously we understand wellness and wellness design, but as we're looking at the retail sector, we're looking at the workplace sector, how do you then create environments within the traditional spa and wellness environment for patients with cancer? We think, after having done the research, that these spaces would work well to support people with cancer. We think that with the treatments and with therapies that you can offer in these traditional environments, you can also improve the spaces. We think that we can provide an active and beneficial extension to the patient's care experience. We think also that lots of spas are already within the communities and they have existing social support networks. Why not take advantage of those? Wellness spaces generally are calm, they're naturalistic, hygienic. And we think they're entirely appropriate environments to support patients with cancer as well. But we think also with a few enhancements, you can actually optimize the offer for cancer patients. But how do you do that? So as with all spaces that we design, we always design from the user's perspective and experience, and that's absolutely key. We know that the way that you design can have an impact on the guest's anxiety level and their well-being. So if you design a space well, that should improve the outcome for the user of that building. But crucially, the starting point really needs to be, what is the experience of the cancer patient? This needs to be the starting point. This is a quote from Maggie Jenks, who's one of the co-founders of the Maggie Centers, and it's an incredibly powerful quote, and chimes really with some of the things that Glenda was saying at the start of this presentation. I'll let you read this just for a few seconds. It's very powerful. Okay, so again, we're not experts in cancer, as JP's set out. We must reiterate and reinforce that. We've set out here what we think are common experiences for cancer patients, both emotionally and physically. And again, as we've said, we don't want to patronize anybody, but this is our understanding of some of the sort of the key experiences: nausea, stress, physical weakness, an increased sensitivity to light, higher heart and respiratory rates, conscious of appearance, anxious, disorientation, sad, but also contemplative. In terms of physicality, then thinning hair and weight loss. So these are some of the common experiences.
Just quickly before you go on, Asif, just go
Sure.
back. I think, as you said, this is a sort of a short list that we've put together. And I think we would love to hear from other people, because obviously these are the things that will inform us in terms of how to better, create spaces and apply wellness design. So we'd love to hear from people as to what other aspects they think we as architects should be looking at.
Okay, so if you take that common ground, what can we do in terms of designing for cancer? So we know that well-designed spaces can support people's emotional well-being, improve their health outcomes. We need to design a space that's as far as possible from the traditional hospital and treatment environment. We know that cancer care is about sort of two things. There's the science of treatment, which is the kind of heavyweight medical end. Then there's also the art of care. And we think that the traditional spa and beauty environment can be an extension of that art of care environment. The environment that we create should be nurturing and supportive. We need to design, as we've said, from the user's perspective. But really what's great is that if we identify some of those experiences a cancer patient is having, and we try to build in ways of mitigating those, that means we can then optimize the output of those environments that we create. So some of the things to think about in terms of design, noise and smell, the materials that we use within the spaces, color has a huge impact, lighting, nature, art, the way the spaces are planned, the furniture that we use, and then hygiene, which is obviously a crucial one if you have a low immune system. I'll just place this there for a second. This is just, don't read all of this, but in essence, what this is saying is that the spaces we create have a huge impact on your multi-sensory experience. So when you make a space or create a space, there's 1,000 things going on simultaneously in your mind that you're processing about the way the space is affecting you. And that then creates a perception that then has an impact on your physical and psychological well-being. We'll leave that there. And if you read that very quickly and understood that, well done. Okay, right. So again, just conscious of time, which is why I'm rushing slightly in this. The overall experience of how you should create the space. It should be calm, uncluttered, and restful. That will make an experiential outcome that's more positive. Try to use warm colors and materials. Keep the space clutter-free and tidy. You will have to use hard materials because they need to be cleaned. You provide visual distraction because that helps to calm and reassure guests. And also avoid hard, shiny surfaces and mirrors to avoid unwanted reflections. That's quite crucial. Okay, so noise. This is a big one. It's very important to try and manage the patient's heart rate and respiratory rate. So it's crucial to use materials which are sound absorbing. So if you can use natural materials that are perhaps perforated, such as timber veneers, that helps to soften the sound. But also you can put objects into the space that are almost visual cues that help people be more quiet within a space. And then finally, using calm colors and patterns also really help in psychologically calming down how a space feels to an individual.
Can I just jump in very quickly there? I know we've got short on time, but as architects and designers, we can create spaces, but I think it's really important that the operators work with us on this, because so often I will go to a spa and then I will find a distraction because people are talking in the corridor, making sounds. Those little sounds can have a massive impact on how you have your treatment. So that's an operational management thing.
Yeah. Onto colour, we know that colour can have a huge impact. There's also colour therapy, of course. I'm sure there's some therapists that know about that on this conference. Has a huge impact on your emotional state and well-being as well. Warm colours make you feel more comfortable. Cooler colours make you feel cooler, but give you a perception of open space. And neutral colours can be very, very calming. Light is very, very important to control the light. One of the things you notice about a space that's not designed around well principles is how flat the lighting is. It's very crucial in a wellness space is to give accented lighting. So you do have areas which are darker, and have lower lighting, and then areas where you have brighter lighting. Whatever you do within a space designed for cancer patients, having non-direct lighting is really important. But also, if you can get some natural lighting, perhaps at the start of a treatment, that would be very helpful. And then you close that light off, and then you go to non-direct lighting. Choosing the right light temperature is also quite important. And also lighting that's changeable to the circadian rhythms that the body has naturally. That would also be very helpful as well to a cancer patient's experience. Art, again, very important. Not to have lots of art, but key focused pieces of art that can let people have a more positive experience, and also give them a moment that takes them away from a negative mindset and almost transports them somewhere else, can also be quite helpful. And also digital art would be great, because you can change that during the day and then also change that over the year according to the seasons. Nature, we know that it's a proven accelerant of recovery. If you can give your guests an opportunity to go outside into a garden space, you can have planting in the breakout spaces, that would be great as well. You can use natural patterns within the interior decoration, that would be great as well. But the thing to watch with planting, and this is a slight risk point, is it can also, certainly live plants they can present a hazard to the patient's immune system. So the use of them needs to be quite carefully considered. It's quite interesting, if you look at the world building standards, you're able to get the same biophilic response from artificial planting as you do from natural planting. So maybe that's something to bear in mind. Okay, just quickly here, furniture. Think about your patients or your guests' physical condition in terms of furniture you use. Hand washing and hygiene, absolutely fundamental. But also control of the environment. Be able to adjust the lighting, the heating, the humidity to your guests' specific requirements will give them a better user experience. Okay, JP, do you want to do this one? This is just a quick exercise we've done.
How long have I got? 2 seconds? We put this together because obviously a lot of you are not building new, and you probably have existing treatment rooms. So we've kind of put together what we think is maybe a typical sort of space. And we've looked at it in terms of what it may look like now, what might be in it, what might be the issues, and the simple things that you can do to remedy it. Obviously, we talked about the planting. When you look at this one here, you need to look at the materials you've got. What are they? Do they have any chemicals in them? So you've got to be really careful what you've already got in that space, whether that be in the wall coverings, etc. Fabrics, again, can be a problem in terms of hygiene. The issue here also is noise within the space, if we haven't got the right materials on the walls, and also that might come through doors. As you can see here, there's quite a heavy contrast between the sort of the lighter hues and the darker timbers, which I think it will go on to show actually is not so good. Asif's talked about circadian and rhythms and daylight. I think one of the really important thing here is ventilation and mechanical ventilation. Obviously noise, acoustic baffles, but also in a lot of treatment rooms, it's poorly designed so that you end up with air passing over the body, which actually can be very, very uncomfortable. So it's really, really important within the air circulation, you feel warm and not at any point feeling chilled by an air movement. Lighting from the ceiling, so many treatment rooms have directional lighting coming straight from the ceiling. This creates glare. And okay, I know it can be dimmed, but it still takes away from the enjoyment of the space. Pictures we talked about. Humidity and light, yes, important to have control. So if we just go on to the next slide, Asif.
So just on this, yeah. This is not wanting to patronize anybody, because this room would work perfectly well if you have guests who are going through a cancer experience or treatment. This would work perfectly well, but we just think there's things that you can do just to improve that experience, and this is what the next slide shows.
So this one here, we have basically, it's still got the lighting in the ceiling. We've taken away the the cluttering of all the artwork, gone for some bold artwork, indirect lighting. And I think, as you can see, it's a much softer space to be in. The pattern on the wall is naturalistic. It kind of reflects nature. It's important. The materials on the floor and wall can all be acoustic. They can be antibacterial. There's a lot of products on the market now, and that can go right through to antibacterial ironmongery. It's important, the lighting control, and if it's possible, to have scene sets rather than a lot of dimmer switches, because that way you can actually set up a whole series of scenes that are being carefully crafted to work for different environments. We've talked about mechanical ventilation, and that's important for noise. The artwork, as you can see, we've taken away all that cluttering of artwork and kept the space very simple. I think lots of things can actually end up as a visual disturbance. And I think bolder pieces of art are more attractive and don't create that disturbance visually. So Asif, do you want to come in on anything on those points, Asif? Or
I think the key is to do a few things really well. So the natural calming feel of the space is crucial, and that's through, obviously, as JP said, it's using the timber paneling. You'll see the timber grain, which then takes you back to nature. You've got the artwork on the back wall, so that kind of the biophilia is crucial. The palette is crucial in terms of the colors. But then the materials are really important in terms of how they can be cleaned as well. And also the eco-credentials as a material. So there's three big things there that really make, we think, and optimize the experience for a patient or a guest that's going through cancer experience.
We're getting a nod from Michelle here. So
okay.
yeah, so very quickly here. We've taken a lot of this learning now, and I think I talked about that earlier, in taking wellness into other environments. And one in particular is very exciting, is taking it into very large shopping malls. And we have come up with the concept of integrated wellness. We're currently working one in central London at the moment. And as I said, this is affordable wellness. And essentially it becomes convenient because people can come manage their health all in one trip. So essentially we've got people who shop, work and live there. And I think the retail environments are going to change drastically. And it'll also impact, I think, workplace environments and other environments where, rather than having your medical provision separate, is actually embedded in the way you live your life. And what's important here is that what we're creating here is taking on all the things we've talked about, the natural materials, the journey. A lot of people talk about journey, but actually it just ends up as being a route, and very often actually a confusing route. This space we're designing here has hardly any corridors at all, and it's very easy to navigate. And this is so important. There are so many environments we go into where actually you're stressed merely by trying to find where you're going. It's also driven by, everything here is the consumer need, not driven by clinician planning, although obviously it will take all those functional elements on board. So if you have the next one, and then again, the practitioner rooms will actually have real planting behind a screen. So there's actually a forest at the back of every single room that brings a calming aspect to it. So not only are we creating a space that is better for patients and customers to come to, but for practitioners to work in to give them a better environment.
Well done, JP.
I know, well, I mean, I can talk about this one forever.
Okay, right. So just some takeaways then. This is our sort of last slide, really. I'll run through the first half, JP. Maybe you can pick up the last half. So really, we do think wellness should permeate and inform every space we use. We think there's a real opportunity as designers, operators, all the stakeholders in the creation of environments for our users and our guests to introduce wellness. In all sectors, live, rest, work and play, wellness should permeate all of those areas. There's a benefit there. As I've said, all the stakeholders should be involved in those. It can be underpinned by accreditation if that's something you want to do, and that's a very robust approach to take. but also, as I said before, you can just pick and choose what works for you. Anything you do in terms of wellness principles you introduce to a space will be of benefit to somebody. JP, last couple?
Yes, I think this goes right back to how Asif and I have worked for many years, and that's the whole philosophy of people-centric design. Whatever we do always starts with the people in the space, whether they're working there or coming to visit there, to sleep there or have a treatment, whatever they're doing. And if you start the whole process from that point, you will end up with better spaces. So often we see designs that are very, very interesting. They've got lovely colors and everything else. I mean, many, many years ago, I used to see Buddhas at the foot of treatment rooms. Well, you know, I think a lot of you might know what a no-no that is. So what is important is not the decor, it's about creating great spaces that come from understanding what people want in those spaces. And I think that goes back, obviously, we're learning more about cancer, that, and particularly in those environments, to go right back and say, what are the things we really need in these spaces to make these spaces better? This is a phrase we've got here. We know the impact of good design. Essentially, it's immeasurable. We know it is. We know the impacts of it, but it's not always at the moment quantifiable. And I think as we go along, we will be able to quantify more and more the direct benefits that good designed and well-designed spaces will have on our well-being as people. So there we go.
Michelle, over to you.
Have we got in time? Oh, we've lost Michelle.
Bear with me. Oh, there we go. Am I back? Am I back on everyone's screen? Oh gosh.
Oh, you've got a massive screen.
Don't look at my desktop. No, let me hide the desktop. Yeah, this is if Elaine's still on from yesterday and the psychology of desktops, that is not one for the faint-hearted for sure. That was incredible. A huge thanks, Asif and Jean-Paul, because I know, I mean, I could have just carried on and listened to you all day. You know, it's such a topic close to my heart, and I think it's an area that has been massively, you know, under sort of designed and under considered in our wellness space, which is unfortunate because it's the wellness space, but I think also in home design and sort of office spaces. And I know you guys kind of reach out across all of it, but there was just so much incredible content in there. And I'm very grateful for you for spending the time to share your insight and your wealth of experience about it, but also to integrate it into cancer so beautifully, and to consider exactly how that could relate when we're dealing with people with chronic disease, which, let's be honest, you know, we are in mass. You know, the spaces that we operate from attract people that are unwell in lots of different ways, and we need to make sure the spaces work harder for them. And you've given some incredible insights there, and how people can do it, both from a sort of blank page, considering, you know, from the start, but also more importantly from a retrofit. So thank you so much for that. I'm just saddened that you know, from the schedule, I wanted to pack so much into these 3 days, and it already turned into this monster sort of time. I would have loved to give much more time. It just feels that we haven't sort of given enough time and justice. I'm just going to pop onto questions because I know there was a couple coming through. So Paula Perkins, great presentation. Absolutely couldn't agree more. Elizabeth, fantastic. Could listen all day. Can they come and do my home clinic? Kelly, thank you. So interesting, thought-provoking and reflecting. I'm reflecting, sorry. Lisa Hemmings, thank you. I've come away with great ideas to improve the space I have. Amazing. I know Elizabeth had asked a question, just wanted you to expand a moment on the visual cues you mentioned for quietness, because I think actually that is a really important thing that we're finding, isn't it? I mean, with the consideration of a mental health crisis, although most people know that I believe we were in one way before COVID, we're finding people coming forward asking now for more quiet spaces, and we know there's lots of salons and spas now that are asking people if they would like a quiet treatment or not, just to kind of, you know, try and assess and manage their emotions. So I think Elizabeth was quite interested in that point you made of using visual cues, and she wanted to see if you could just expand on what some of those could be.
Well, we know that obviously colour can have a huge impact on the way that you perceive a space, but also colour can make a space more quiet. So that the colour of the objects that you choose, the furniture that you have, any jewellery that you might have, that can also create the idea of more of a quiet environment, as can shape. So the actual form of a corridor, the shape of a room, whether there's a slight arch in the doorway, all of these things are very strong visual cues that help to quieten the space.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is not to over clutter the space, and keep on layering more design. If anything, pare back, make it simple, but make it bold. You can have a sense of humor, be quirky within it, because all those can be calming in a sense. But what you don't want is a space that's full of so many things coming at you. So if in anything, remove things out of the space.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we will make sure that both for those of you that are watching live and many of you that I know will be joining us on demand, that you have all of the access details to sort of both Asif and Jean-Paul, if you are interested in learning more and getting their help and support in guiding you in either the new design and development or the ongoing sort of retro sort of fit of your space to make that space more well. And it's definitely something that we should all be considering when we're working with our clients and our communities, but never more so when we are supporting people living with and beyond cancer. So again, my huge heartfelt thanks to both Asif and Jean-Paul from Well Architecture Design for all of that incredible wisdom, and for inspiring us all to consider our spaces much more carefully.
Thank you.
Super, thank you. Thanks everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thank you everybody. Bye-bye.